Hi everyone, my name is Kara from the Quogue Wildlife Refuge. I work at the refuge as environmental educator and program coordinator, and just wanted to tell you a little bit about the refuge before we get started on our bird of prey program. So the Quogue Wildlife Refuge was established in 1931. We're a small nonprofit nature preserve located in Quogue, and we have 305 acres, lots of trails for people to come and hike, and wildlife that use the preserve. We also take care of permanently injured wildlife. So, here at the refuge, our mission is to serve as responsible land stewards and promote, implement, and support environmental education. So, we do a lot of programs both on site here at the refuge and off site in different locations, schools, libraries, and just different organizations as well. So we're located right next to West Hampton on the South Fork of Long Island, kind of in between West Hampton and Southampton in the town of Quogue. We have a beautiful nature center building that overlooks Old Ice Pond, and you can come into the nature center and look at our exhibits that we have, as well as some more wildlife and animals that we take care of. And then we have 7 miles of hiking trails, so there is a lot to see at the refuge. We have all of our trails are loops, so the longest loop is the Red Trail, it's 3 miles, and then they go down in length from there. But beautiful habitats that you can come and visit when you visit. We have freshwater ponds, a tidal wetland on Quantuck Creek, and then we are within the Pine Barrens, so a lot of really unique ecosystems for Long Island, like the dwarf pines up at the north end of the refuge, which is a globally rare ecosystem. And it's only found in 3 places in the whole world. So you can come and visit that when you come hike here. We also have a beautiful bridge that crosses Old Ice Pond and some amazing wildlife that you can visit too. So the trails are open every single day from sunrise to sunset in every season. So you can come and visit us at any time. And it is always free to visit. So you can park and there's no admission fee. If you enjoy your visit, we do have donation bins since we run off of donations. Again, enjoyable in every season. In the fall, it's one of my favorite times to come to the refuge because it's so beautiful with the changing leaves. But wintertime, we rent cross-country skis where people can use on the trails. And of course, all seasons are beautiful here. There's always something new to see. And then another large part of our mission is to take care of permanently injured wildlife. So it can mean different things for the animals that you see on our screen are animals that we've had at one point or another or do still have, but our resident animals that live in our outdoor wildlife complex are permanently injured. So for our fox, unfortunately, he was taken illegally from the wild and kept as a pet and is now habituated to people, so he can't find his own food out in the wild. And then a lot of our birds of prey, which are the animals that we're going to talk about today, were unfortunately injured by cars. Some of them had broken wings or lost their ability to see after being hit by a car. So that's why we take care of all of our animals, and you can learn about each one when you come and visit. And then we'll, of course, talk to you about the animals that we're going to meet, the live birds of prey virtually today. So each one has a different story. All are native wildlife, which means that they can be found out in the wild in our area and in New York State. But birds of prey are an amazing group of animals. So they are called avian raptors or birds of prey, which means that they are predator birds. So there are 5 different types of birds of prey that we think of. They all have talons and a curved beak, and that helps them hunt and find their food. So again, they are all predators, which means they're carnivorous. They eat other animals and they eat meat. So on the poster here, which we have this poster at the refuge and we bring offsite with us, but you might see some birds that look familiar or that you think of as a bird of prey or a predator. So eagles are birds of prey. Does anyone know another one? Owls, hawks, falcons, and then there's one more. It's a little trickier, but vultures are considered birds of prey as well. So they all have to have a curved beak and talons. And those are the tools that they use to hunt. And of course, they all have these amazing adaptations, usually great eyesight, a great sense of hearing. Only one has a really good sense of smell, and that's the vultures. But when we bring out our birds and when we teach offsite or when we bring our birds out in person, they are trained to sit on a glove, a leather glove called a gauntlet. And around their ankles it's called a jess. So you might see that on the screen today. A jess is like a collar, but for a bird. So it keeps them safe when we bring them out of their enclosures. And then attached to the jesses is a leash that we hold on to. So they will flap their wings sometimes. They are very used to being out in front of people. So we're very lucky to teach with our animals and our ambassador animals so that they can help people realize how to help these birds in the wild too. So that's a little bit about birds of prey. And I wanted to show you guys just some talons that we have from a great horned owl. These are some bones, right, that were articulated by a scientist. So you can see how big the talons are from a great horned owl. It's pretty amazing. So again, all birds of prey or all avian raptors have talons and a really sharp curved beak. So we're going to meet some birds. And again, my name is Kara and Mr. Tony is also here as well. So we're going to meet some birds today.
So Hooter is known as a great horned owl. And if you look carefully, he's got these really cool specialized feathers on the top of his head called feather tufts. That's where they thought they were horns, but they're actually his feather tufts designed to help him to camouflage much better. He is great. This is the largest and most common owl on Long Island. So when people say, I heard an owl in my backyard or saw one, typically it's usually the great horned owl who's found across the United States and adapts to all different types of zones and habitats. So Hooter, you're probably wondering how to get to the refuge. Well, he has an interesting story. He was found uh, as a baby owl. Does anyone know what a baby owl is? Or what it's called? Good, owlet. And as a baby owlet, someone thought they were helping him when he was out of the nest, and they picked him up and they kept him pretty much as a pet, which made him what we call very good imprinted. So as an imprinted bird, he sees all humans as owls like himself, or that he's human himself. So he's not able to be released back in the wild because he's too familiarized with people at this point. And as you can see, he's very used to being around people and vocalizing and talking back. So believe it or not, Hooter is over 20 years old at this time. I've heard they can live to about 30 in captivity, around 25 in the wild, 2025. So he's an amazing male great horned owl. And if you look closely, can you tell me what color eyes Hooter has? Look at that. It's not every day you get to look into the eye of an owl. These bright golden yellow eyes, absolutely beautiful. And these giant eyes are what he uses to hunt mostly at night. So he's one of our nighttime birds of prey, which you probably know the word for. A nighttime active animal is called nocturnal. So he is one of the top apex predators, nocturnal predators at night, flying around and looking for all types of things. He's listening right now. Um, so if you hear a great horned owl, typically they live in woodlands, forest areas. They love to nest in old pine trees, very tall pine trees. So those old forests that we have, that's what we need to preserve and conserve and protect for these animals. They do an amazing job balancing out the food chain and the ecosystem. When we have too many rodents, these guys do a great job as far as eating them up and keeping that in balance, the circle of life, as we call it. So when he's out there ready to hunt, he uses great vision at nighttime. He uses super hearing, his listening, right? And he has these really sharp nails on his feet that we call, oh, very good, talons. So these sharp talons are amazing grippers. They're like his own built-in fork and knife set when it comes to eating his prey. The animal's praying they don't get eaten. So when this animal goes out to eat, he pretty much can eat anything that he captures in his talons, which can be small mice, moles, voles, and work his way up to snakes, possums, raccoons, even other owls, skunks, and feral cats I've seen. So they're one of the top predators out there. They call them the tiger of the woods out here, not because he's good at golf, right? Tiger of the woods because he is the top predator. Now, that name can come from the pattern or camouflage that he has on his feathers, right? This plumage has these amazing tiger-like stripes. So he's got these orangey, brown, white, black, and black lines that help him to blend into his surroundings so he can't be seen, especially with a pine tree. So he looks just like a pine tree when he's out there. Very hard to see, even though they're extremely large. Females can have up to a 5 foot wingspan, males between 3.5 to 4.5 feet. And even though he's a pretty large bird of prey, one of the biggest at nighttime, he's not actually that heavy. Anyone want to take a guess how much he actually weighs? What do you think? Hmm. Someone said 30 pounds, 15 pounds, 50 pounds. Nope. Are you ready for this? Hooter weighs about 3 to 4 pounds. That's about it. And the reason for that, right, buddy, is because he's made up of mostly feathers. And if you look carefully, watch how far my finger goes before I touch Hooter's actual neck. That's all feathers. So he's made up of lots of feathers, and on top of it, as a bird, his bones are hollow like straws. Our bones are solid, which means we can't mend our bones. We can mend our bones, but they can't. If their bones get broken in any way, they shatter like glass, and it's not something good for them. So those hollow bones and feathers make them extremely light. All right, ready? Can everyone listen? Tell me if you hear anything really loud or any whooshing sounds when he makes his feathers and wings flap. Any big whooshing or whistling sounds from those feathers? Nope. Owls have a very cool superhero power, and that is silent flight. As an owl, they have the possession of a specialized flight feather, which looks like this, and it has a tiny fringe-like structure at the top. I don't know if you can see that, but that silences the wind as Hooter flaps his wings, and aerodynamically, that silences the wind. So that means his prey cannot hear him coming up from behind to be captured, which is a great adaptation for survival for these birds. Now, he's making some whinny noises. Um, if you're wondering when these birds nest, because most birds are nesting in the springtime right now. This is the spring when everybody's building their own nest and ready to have their eggs laid and raise their babies in the nest and then leave. But this guy, they're known for raising their eggs and nestlings in the winter. So this is a bird of prey that will actually nest in the wintertime. They'll use a already pre-existing nest from an osprey, a hawk, or a crow, and build on that nest in the wintertime and lay their eggs when it's very cold. And if you look carefully at its feet, you'll understand why they're able to do that. You'll see an adaptation. I call them Ugg boots. They're these furry-like toes or specialized feathers that look like fur that stops him from getting frostbite. He has his own built-in design there. All right, let's give Hooter a goodbye here. Here we go. Good job listening. We're gonna bring up our next bird of prey. It looks like Honey, I Shrunk the Owl. Oh, let's see.
All right, so this is another species of owl, and it looks just like a miniature version of the great horned owl. So this is an eastern screech owl, and this is an owl that we have all across Long Island. They make a really cool noise at night that sounds like a horse's whinny or a screech, and that's where they get their name, screech owl. So I'll try to reenact the noise. It sounds like but our screech owl doesn't usually talk on programs. So that's why he's being kind of quiet right now. But eastern screech owls are really amazing birds of prey, just like our great horned owl. And they look very similar because they live in the same habitats. So just like the great horned owl, they live all across Long Island in forested areas, sometimes in backyards or in suburban areas where you wouldn't really expect an owl like this guy. So they need a few things to survive, just like many different types of animals. They need food, water, shelter. And for an animal like this, they eat lots of different things. So they eat mostly small mice and small rodents, but they'll also eat moths and insects and sometimes reptiles or amphibians like frogs. So they eat many different things, but our screech owl that we have here, he eats mostly mice. And the reason why we have our screech owl is because unfortunately he was flying around Long Island. He was a wild owl and he was injured by a car. So he was hit by a car and found on the side of the road by someone who saw him. They brought him to a wildlife rescue center called the Star Foundation in Middle Island, and he was rehabilitated there. But unfortunately, because of his injuries, he'll never be able to fly as well as he should be able to and hunt his own food. So that's why we take care of him here at the refuge. And that's why we will have to keep him in our care, in human care, in captivity for the rest of his life. But he does live outside in an enclosure that you can come and visit. Our screech owl, he lives, and all screech owls rely on cavity nests. And that means that they will utilize a hole in a tree to use as their nest box. So if you at home hold up your fist just like this, that's the size of a hole in a tree that a screech owl will move into, lay their eggs, and hatch their chicks and hatch their babies. So if you want to help these owls and these screech owls, it's really important you can put up nest boxes in your backyard that are the right size for an eastern screech owl. So that's really helpful. Our screech owls are pretty much always in their nest boxes until right when the sun goes down. Because of course, these screech owls are nocturnal. So they're coming out right when the sun goes down to hunt. And just like our great horned owl, they have some really cool adaptations that allow them to hunt at night. So just like the great horned owl, they have those really large eyes. They have those ear tufts that are not their ears, those are just their feathers, and their ears are underneath this line of feathers, and one of course is a little bit higher and one is a little bit lower. And then on the front of his face, can you guys see all of those feathers? And they almost look like beautiful whiskers. And those will allow an animal, especially like the eastern screech owl, to find their prey and feel when they're getting close. So if they're catching a bug, all those extra feathers on the front of his face will allow him to feel before catching their prey. So that's really a good adaptation for those eastern screech owls. And we do actually have more than one of the screech owl and more than one of our great horned owl. So for our screech owls, we have another screech owl. She's a female. This is our male screech owl. And you can tell the difference for these two birds because our male screech owl is brown and it's called the gray phase of an eastern screech owl, but they are born in different colored phases or different colored feathers. So this is our gray phase, but screech owls can also be born with red feathers. And we have a red phase eastern screech owl who's a female. But the really interesting thing for screech owls and these eastern screech owls is that it doesn't mean that they're a boy if they're gray, and it doesn't mean that they're a girl if they're red. So they can be either a boy or a girl and be found in those different colored feathers. And it's really hard to tell the difference between the birds of prey because the boys and the girls usually look exactly the same. And the only way to tell the difference is by size. So usually the bigger bird is a female and the smaller bird is a male. Because most birds of prey, all of the birds as an adult look exactly the same. So that's a little bit different from if you see in the mural above my head, we have a female cardinal and a male cardinal. All the male cardinals are the brighter color while the females are a little bit duller. And that's not true for birds of prey. So it's a really interesting thing, but it is cool to know that they come in two different colored phases, they're called. So screech owls are really lightweight. This is a full-grown screech owl. So you can see this is my hand and he's sitting on my hand. If I step back, you can see kind of how small he is. And that is full grown for an eastern screech owl. Does anyone know how heavy he is? And I can see, we will take some guesses, but screech owls are really lightweight. They have really, really lightweight feathers. They're very tiny, as you can see. And of course, to fly, birds have hollow bones. So on the inside of their bones, it's almost like a paper towel tube. If you can look straight through the middle, and that's for birds of prey, also true. So it's very lightweight and it helps them fly. So our eastern screech owl only weighs 9 ounces, so about the size of a clementine. Really, really lightweight creatures that helps them fly around. And on Long Island, we have lots of screech owls. They are not endangered here, which is a great sign. And like I was saying, it's very important. You can put up nest boxes if you want to have some screech owls move in. But it's always also important to remember that screech owls are not pets. So they are wild animals. It's illegal to ever have a screech owl in your house or as a pet because they are wild animals. If you ever find a screech owl that's injured, they can go to a wildlife rescue center and then hopefully be released back into the wild. So if you ever have any questions, though, you can call us at the refuge and we can help you find some numbers for a wildlife rehabilitator who's licensed to help these birds. But like all predator birds, before I leave you with our screech owl, before we get to our next bird, can you guys see how he has that curved beak and these talons that are holding onto my glove? And that means he's a bird of prey, a predator bird. So even though he's much smaller than other types of birds, he's still a predator. He's still a great predator out in the forest, eating smaller things, but definitely still a bird of prey. All right, so our next bird is coming out. And I did mention that we have another great horned owl. So our other great horned owl is not very good on the glove, and that's why he's always on display so people can see him, but he does get more stressed out on the glove than Hooter, so that's why we handle only the birds that do very well on the glove. And they're covered in lots of feathers, thousands of feathers, and they have even feathers underneath here that help keep him nice and warm. So thousands of feathers, really amazing. All right, our next bird of prey is coming out, very different than this bird. So I'm excited for you to meet him.
All right. You got to see one of the cutest, smaller owls of Long Island as a bird of prey. Now we're going to go to one of the biggest types of daytime hunters on Long Island and across the region. Who knows what this one is? All right, I'll give him a little turn around here. Telltale color right there. And if you guessed red-tailed hawk, you are correct. So this is a beautiful red-tailed hawk. If you notice, his chest is white, his back is this beautiful brown color. His tail has that rustic red orangey color. So this is a full-grown male red-tailed hawk. So this is the most common that we see. Most people see them flying in circles around in the air or sitting on posts on the side of the street looking for their prey. So for this daytime hunter, we have a special word, which is diurnal. You can try saying that at home, diurnal, which means he is a powerful daytime hunter and active in the day just like us. And if you notice, his adaptations are very different. The way his body is designed shows that he's created just to hunt very quickly and stealthily in the air during the daytime. His eyes are a beautiful brown color. You can see that. His face is aerodynamic and pointed. And when he's flying, his wings are broad like a kite. So he can actually soar on warm air currents for hours a day and search for his food without expending a lot of energy, which is really cool. Has anyone ever seen one of these out there? All right. If you have, you're seeing these daytime birds of prey come back due to a lot of great efforts by people who are passionate about wildlife. We're going to talk more about that later. But a lot of people know about red-tailed hawks from a story called Pale Male, which was the first red-tailed hawk to move to New York City, right on Fifth Avenue. Whoop, There we go, 10 points. And that was exciting because that was the first predator bird like that to take nest right on a balcony on Fifth Avenue and raise about 3 families. So we realized nature and animals are doing very well again. Back on Long Island, they're thriving. Um, let's take a close look. I'm going to show you those amazing eyes that he has. Now, if you had eyes just like this red-tailed hawk, they say you could read your book from across the football field or look at the pictures, depending how old you are. And you also could see the tiniest of movements. So when he's flying a mile high up there, you can see a small mouse circling around, and he can come down, dive, and put out those sharp talons that we were talking about and grab him right as he's flying. So for his food, his diet, he doesn't eat chicken nuggets, as we know. He loves the small mice, right? Little rats, small different types of rodents. They'll also eat snakes, squirrels, rabbits. And I've even heard, well, I've witnessed actually, my chickens. So chicken hawk is another nickname they give him. Small dogs and cats you'd want to watch out for too. So this is a great predator of Long Island in the daytime, to be respected in many, many levels. Now, another cool thing about his eyes, if you look closely, is he look kind of upset or angry, right? He can't help that. His eyebrows are continually like that because it's actually part of his skull. For these daytime hunting birds, including falcons and eagles, hawks, they all have this special eyebrow ridge, a part of their bone that hangs up and over their eye. And that's like you and I wearing a cap so we don't get sun damage to our eyes or blinded by the light. So they're specially designed for that daytime hunting activity. Another cool thing about them is if you look closely at his feet, he doesn't have furry feet or feathery feet like any other, like the great horned owl or snowy. He has very scaly toes. And if you look closely, it reminds you kind of the way a T Rex or velociraptor would look. And that brings us to the point that he is in the family of raptors, right? No, not rappers, raptors. That means this is one of the animals that are born to seize their prey and do a great job at it. Now they're even saying that dinosaurs might be closer related to birds than that we thought a long time ago. Might have possessed feathers as well. So still have more to learn. All right. So this bird right here probably weighs between 4 to 5 pounds. When they're fully grown like this, they can have a wingspan of about 3 to 4 feet. And this is a male red-tailed hawk, which means he's actually smaller than the female. The female could be 1/3 larger than him, which is really cool. The females are always larger in the bird of prey family. They're the egg carriers and they protect the nest. He's looking around. He's like, what's going on around here? So this is a bird that deserves our full respect. Again, these animals are not to have as pets, but the strange thing is with this bird in particular, he was found injured on the side of the road, but when they had gotten him, they found one of those jesses on his legs. See those 2 leather straps on his legs? Those are called jesses. I'm holding a leash, but they found him with one of those already there, which means he was actually a falconer's bird, which means on Long Island, there are people who actually go out and hunt with hawks and falcons, and they usually capture squirrels and rabbits, but sometimes those birds that are trained with those falconers get away, which happened to him. So that is an interesting fact. Don't go out trying to become a falcon right away. It's one of those things that take years and years of training if anyone's interested. All right. One amazing thing about these types of daytime birds of prey are ospreys and eagles, close cousins to the hawk, are actually on the rise incredibly in numbers on Long Island, which I call the nature renaissance. Osprey in particular, they were almost completely wiped out by a chemical called DDT. And that was a chemical that affected their eggs so much so that they couldn't produce the calcium that would harden their shells, and they were actually crushing their own shells, and the population was not growing at all. It was affecting all types of birds of prey. But now, in our day and age, in our timing, we get to see not only the osprey doing extremely well, the red-tailed hawk soaring, but we get to also see for the first time in over 80 years the eagles coming back. So this is a very special time. At least 8 nest sites have been confirmed with eagles staying across Long Island. So the more we learn about these animals, the more educated we'll be, the more passionate we'll be to keep preserving and conserving them. And that's part of our job. So hopefully our red-tailed hawks will completely thrive along with our eagles during this time. All right, we'll be getting ready for our next bird of prey. And just remember, when you hear that cool sound out there, it's not an eagle. It's usually the red-tailed hawk, the sound bit used in movies and everything else when they're trying to produce a bird of prey sound.
All right. So again, we went from one of our biggest hawks and biggest owls to one of our smallest. So this is a really special bird that we have, and she's actually the newest resident at the Quogue Wildlife Refuge. This is an American kestrel. She's full grown, so they don't get any larger than this, but they are North America's smallest falcon. So we just met the red-tailed hawk, really large species of bird, and this is a really small predator bird, again, kind of like our screech owls. This bird is around a year old, so she is pretty young. She came to us from Volunteers for Wildlife, which is up the island a little bit in Locust Valley, but she when she was found, unfortunately someone found her when she was a nestling, and she was raised illegally as a pet. So unfortunately someone found her and they thought, oh, I can keep this bird as a pet even though it's illegal. And she was found, she had an upper respiratory infection, or kind of like a cough but for birds. And she was brought to a Volunteers for Wildlife, a wildlife rehabilitator, where they took lots of good care of her, and then decided to place her in a place like the Quogue Wildlife Refuge, where we are permitted to have these types of animals. So close to the screen, she might look a little bit bigger, but I want to show you how big she is when I stand back. Can you guys see now how tiny she is? She is around the size of a mourning dove, which is a pretty common bird that we have across Long Island. If you ever see a mourning dove, that's the size of an American kestrel. And she's doing something right now that all American kestrels do, in case you ever see one out in the wild. Can you see that tail bobbing? American kestrels usually will do that. That helps them balance. She's moving her tail back and forth for balance, and she's kind of looking around the room. And this is one of our, as I was saying, one of our animals that we just got here at the refuge a couple months ago in March. And she is full grown. She won't get any bigger. But we have been working with her a lot in front of the camera so that people can learn about her and meet her. And she's been doing really well on the gloves. So as you can see, she's kind of looking around, and that's showing you too. Can you guys see her eyes? Just like our red-tailed hawk, they're on the sides of her head. And that's really good for a bird of prey that hunts during the daytime, because she's looking around and trying to find her food. It will help her when she's flying to see what's on the sides of her body. But for the owls, you may have noticed that the owl's eyes are facing forward, and that's just like our eyes. They have binocular vision. And I'm going to try to give our American kestrel a super worm. Let me show you guys what these look like. They are a type of worm. They grow into a beetle, and our reptiles really love to eat these. Let's see if our kestrel will eat one. Can you guys see she just ate a super worm? Let me try one more time too. But this is one of her favorite treats. Let's see if she'll eat this one. So in the wild, American kestrels will eat bugs, they'll eat insects, she will eat worms, but also they'll eat mice. So this bird loves to fly around open fields, golf courses, and sometimes, if you look really carefully, they'll be hovering and flying right above their prey. So that's something to look for if you're trying to see American kestrels on Long Island. An American kestrel, this is a female bird. So she's a girl. And on the sides of her face, can you see she has those black marks under her eyes? And male birds also have that, but it's a bit bigger. And can you guys see on the back of her body, she has those two spots right below her head on her neck. And that is to trick a predator into thinking that she has eyes in the back of her head. And that's important because if there was a bigger predator, like maybe a red-tailed hawk above her, she would be able to trick them into thinking that she can see them. So that's important because this is such a small bird and she has to escape from predators, right? But she also has that curved beak. She has these talons that are really sharp. So she's a great predator, still a really great predator. You can see she's bobbing her tail a lot. So, like the screech owl, she's also a cavity nester, which means she needs to move on into the inside of a tree to nest and have her chicks. So that's why these birds and the screech owls, another thing that you can do to help them is to provide a nest box for them so that they can move into a nest box or a cavity in a tree and they can have their young. American kestrels are unfortunately on the decline. Their populations are declining across North America. So those are some things that we can do to help them in the future. Right. They are our smallest falcon. So they're really, really amazing birds to see. I've seen a couple on Long Island, but it took me years to see them. So they're really fun when you get a chance to see them. You can look for this beautiful colored feathers, look for that tail bob, as well as on the front, you can look for that kind of grayish head and then that mustache pattern. So again, really beautiful birds. And another problem that many predator birds have is because they're on the top of the food chain. If there are chemicals or pesticides sprayed in the environment, those chemicals can travel up the food chain. So for instance, if we know that American kestrels eat bugs. If we don't have any bugs left, do you think we'll have any American kestrels? No, right? So we have to make sure to protect everything in our environment because it's all connected. So it is really important that we don't spray pesticides or even rodenticides, which means mice and rat poison, and that way this type of bird and all birds of prey will have delicious food to eat, right? Even though we don't want to eat those things, they need to. So it's really important not to use mice and rat poison and also not to spray for insects because those are important prey animals. And almost all birds of prey have a little bit of that poison from eating mice and rats that have ingested that toxic chemical. So it is important to protect our environment. And we just have this one American kestrel here at the refuge. So she does live alone, but because she is an imprinted bird, that means that she sees people as her family. She can't be released into the wild because she wouldn't know how to hunt on her own. She wouldn't know how to find her own food because she grew up thinking that people were her family. So that word imprinted, that's what that means. She knows now that people are her family. And so we'll take really good care of her. And it's important also that we teach people that these are wild animals. And if you do find a bird or any type of animal, even if it's as small as a turtle, it's very important to leave them in the wild or try to get them help. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed meeting our birds. And you can always learn more about the refuge on our website and for more upcoming programs. Our website is www.quoguewildliferefuge.org. So we have lots of information up there. You can come and visit our birds at any time. We're open from sunrise to sunset every single day of the year. So I hope you have a great day, and please feel free to contact us if you have any questions. So all of our contact is listed on our website as well. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.